25 minutes ago. You can see the Spinnaker Tower. Well, we started about 200 yards to the right of that. See the motorway route out of the city, the monument, the sails of the south there we came past. So we've got a good clear view out there. Okay, if you can look straight ahead of you in the far distance, you can see some chimney stacks sticking up into the air. Well, you're looking as far away there as Southampton Water, because that's the Fawley oil refinery. And beyond the Fawley oil refinery is the start of the New Forest. Coming across slightly to the left, you can see the far tip of the Isle of Wight there, and you can see all the yachts out there today, because that's the town of Cowes that you're looking down towards, and of course you're right in the middle of Cowes Regatta Week at the moment, so all the yachts are out in the Solent. And that's the stretch of water between the Isle of Wight and the mainland here, that's the Solent. The stretch of water between Portsmouth and the next section of land, you can see, is Portsmouth Harbour, and that's Gosport, the peninsula running down there, far side of Portsmouth Harbour. In Portsmouth Harbour you can see one or two of the old warships. They're known as the warships of the Mothball Fleet. And the Mothball Fleet are ships that have served their useful purpose really within the British Navy. They're moored up there for three possible reasons. One, if there's a crisis of some sort, they can be brought back into service. Secondly, they might be selling on to a foreign navy. Or thirdly, they might be too old and they're awaiting scrapping. So, the Mothball Fleet. Then you've got the city itself, immediately on your left-hand side. See the high-rise blocks and the apartment blocks, the office blocks of Portsmouth. You can see the cranes of the dockyard, Spinnaker Tower there. And out in the waters of the Solent, immediately on your left, you can see one or two of the sea forts. And I'll come back to those in a minute. Over your left shoulder, behind you can see the entrance to Langstone Harbour, and we'll be right down on that harbour entrance in about half an hour or so. You then got Hayling Island, the waters of Chichester Harbour, and then the Witterings and Selsey Bill right into West Sussex. You get a marvellous panorama today, almost along the whole coastal strip of Hampshire. Now, if I can bring you back to looking straight ahead of you, that brick-built structure with the big radio mast on top. Well, that radio mast is a fairly recent addition, but the forts have been there quite a bit longer. That fort is called Fort Woodley, that you can see ahead of you there, and is one of 6 forts built along the ridge of Portsdown Hill, and part of the ring fortress system surrounding Portsmouth. Built in the 1860s following the invention of a very important piece of army artillery, and that was called the Armstrong gun. A powerful gun using rifling in the barrel for the first time, and that allowed an artillery piece to be fired with much more accuracy and 5 times the distance than the old style cannons. Now this therefore meant that Portsmouth would be left vulnerable to attack from the north, i.e. up here on Portsdown Hill, and there was considerable alarm at the time because Louis Bonaparte had declared himself Emperor of France, and the perception was that he might seek revenge for his uncle Napoleon's defeats at the battles of Trafalgar and Waterloo. Now the Prime Minister at the time was Lord Palmerston, and he ordered the building not just of 6 forts along the ridge of Portsdown Hill here, but 5 forts down the Gosport Peninsula and 4 forts out in the waters of the Solent, making up a ring fortress system around the city, making Portsmouth the most fortified city in Europe. However, Lord Palmerston did not see eye to eye with his Chancellor of the Exchequer at the time, who needed to release the funds for the forts to be built. And his Chancellor of the Exchequer was Mr. Gladstone. But Lord Palmerston had a very powerful ally in Queen Victoria, and she unofficially intervened by saying that she would far rather lose Mr Gladstone than she would Portsmouth, and so the go-ahead was given to build the forts. Fort Woodley, straight ahead of you, cost £100,000 to build, and when we pass it shortly, we'll be passing by the back of the forts because they face inland, as the French had plans to land further down the coast and attack Portsmouth from the north. And they were manned by troops of the Portsmouth garrison and had extensive facilities underground, which were used in later years by local government to continue in the event of a nuclear attack. If you look just to your right on the grass verge there, by those bushes to the right there, is a little memorial, and that memorial is to a Hurricane fighter pilot of World War II called Flight Sergeant Paddy Adair, who crashed near here returning from a raid over Southampton. He was going back to Thorney Island when he crashed. So we'll be passing by the rear of Fort Woodley, and these forts were dubbed Palmerston's Follies, as they never fired a shot in anger. They pointed inland, much to the bewilderment of the locals, and by the time they were finished, the French threat had subsided. But this is the reason why they were built. This Armstrong gun here on the grass in front of the fort. That's what the Armstrong guns look like. Now, coming forward 100 years to a conflict of the 20th century, in the Second World War, and in particular D-Day, because all along the south coast, but particularly concentrated to the north of Portsdown Hill, here to the right, thousands of Allied troops and their equipment massed in the days leading up to the 6th of June 1944. Down in the valley to our right is Southwark House, where the Supreme Allied Forces commander at D-Day, General Dwight D. Eisenhower, had his advanced headquarters, and it was from Southwark House that he gave the order committing 3 million men, 7,000 ships and 11,000 aircraft to the D-Day operation codenamed Overlord. And he set that operation in motion with just 2 words. He said, "Let's go."